This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Welcome to What's Coming Up. I'm Claire Kimball.
And I'm Larissa Moore. This week, from the Amazon hosting its first climate summit to Australia, reflecting on the day democracy was tested 50 years ago. We'll get you ready for the week ahead.
We will. There's also the Syrian leader who's had a bounty on his head last year. He's about to walk into the Oval Office. So let's get you across what's coming up. So Cop30, Larissa, you and I talked a lot about Australia's climate woes yesterday, particularly for the coalition. Cop30, the big United Nations conference, it's off and running in Belém in Brazil, kicked off at the end of the week with the Leaders Summit. Monday is the start of the main negotiations. It'll run through to the 21st of November. They're a bit of a marathon, these big COP meetings.
And this one has a bit of a different approach because they've got the leaders at the start. But this isn't a COP where significant new targets are being set. That's often a big reason why we talk about these summits. This one is being called the Rainforest COP because it's happening in the Amazon, which acts as a massive carbon sink for the world. It's also marking some significant anniversaries. It's been 10 years since the Paris Agreement, which was the big climate agreement.
Yeah, exactly. That was the breakthrough that really set us down this road. On the location, so Brazil's President Lula has been pushing for the Amazon to really be central to these climate discussions.
The lungs of the world.
Exactly. Bolsonaro, who was the president before him, was all for developing the Amazon and tearing down rainforest habitats hand over foot. Lula has taken a very different stance, a very different politicians. How these COP conferences happen, though, it's not exactly low emissions. No. So they're expecting over 60,000 people, heads of state, diplomats, activists, everyone in between. They're all descending on this city in the rainforest.
And there's already drama just about the logistics of holding the conference. There's an accommodation shortage. Accommodation that usually started at around $11 is going for $9,000 a night. Austria's delegation has pulled out because of the costs. 27 countries signed a letter demanding solutions, and some were pressuring Brazil to move the whole thing to another city.
That's not happening, though. The show is already on the road. As for who has shown up to the Leaders Summit, Britain's Keir Starmer, France's Emmanuel Macron, Germany's Friedrich Merz. As for from our region, Palau's president is really quite prominent in all this. That's Syrian President. He's been there. He's been one of the strongest voices on climate diplomacy when it comes to our region.
Yeah. As for us, as for Australia, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese didn't go. He sent Chris Bowen, who's our climate change and energy minister, so he's the one leading the delegation. Now, Australia's trying to secure the rights to Cop31 next year with the Pacific nations. We're in protracted negotiations with Turkey about who gets it. There's a bit of commentary about the fact that Albanese is not there.
Yeah, if we really want Cop31. So the Pacific leaders, as you say, it would be hosted in Adelaide and parts of the Pacific Islands. The leaders from the Pacific aren't really happy about Albanese skipping it. Palau's president said that Albanese's presence would really help push Turkey over the line when it comes to those sort of hosting rights. Turkey is a part of this conversation because it's Australia and Turkey competing for it. If we can't agree, Australia and Turkey, neither of us get it. It goes to Germany.
Yeah, over to Bonn in Germany. Now, the actual agenda for COP30 is being called the implementation COP. Basically, countries need to show they're actually doing what they've promised. Everyone is supposed to submit their updated climate targets, their NDCs as they're called, nationally determined contributions. And there's also this focus on getting climate finance flowing through to developing countries.
Yeah, that was a big part of the last COP, what that sort of finance looked like to help developing nations actually make meaningful climate emissions reductions. Another thing to note, the United States isn't sending any high-level delegates or representatives. That's US President Donald Trump's approach on that.
Speaking of the Trump administration, on Monday, Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa is heading to the White House.
Genuinely historic, this. Yeah. So no Syrian head of state has ever been received at the White House for an official visit. The last time any senior Syrian official was there was back in 1999 when the foreign minister came for peace talks with Israel. a whole lot has happened since then. War in the region, and Syria, of course, has had significant domestic turmoil.
And the backstory on al-Sharaa is pretty incredible. A year ago, he had a $10 million bounty on his head. He was known as Abu Muhammad al-Jalani. He led Syria's offshoot of al-Qaeda, and he fought against US forces in Iraq. He was even imprisoned by American troops for several years. And now he's
in the White House being received by the president. It's pretty incredible. And this all changed last December. So he led the rebel offensive that toppled Bashar al-Assad and his regime. They'd been in for 50 years, a really brutal regime. Assad fled to Russia and al-Sharaa emerged as Syria's new leader. The transformation's been pretty remarkable in a very short period of time. So in September, he became the first Syrian president in 6 decades to address the United Nations General Assembly.
Trump's already met him twice this year, first in Saudi Arabia in May, where he described him as a young, attractive guy, tough guy, with a very strong past. Loves to comment on people's attractiveness levels.
World leaders' attractiveness is a thing.
So relevant to the job. During this White House visit, al-Sharaa is expected to sign an agreement for Syria to formally join the US-led coalition against ISIS.
Yeah, so Tom Barrack, who is the United States official envoy to Syria, he says that this is a really, really big deal, that Syria joining this coalition is really quite something. The Trump administration is also backing the removal of sanctions on Syria, which has really crippled the country's economy. So you can see why they're talking about this meeting as a new chapter for Damascus, for Syria and for the United States.
Yeah, al-Sharaa has already proposed turning Syria into a trade corridor between East and West, and apparently even suggested building a Trump Tower in Damascus to encourage US investments. Speaking Donald Trump's language, it's peak Trump diplomacy right there.
Yeah, he knows. The way to the man's heart is through a massive tower with his name on it, so not a bad approach.
Just played it in gold and you're done, boom.
To finish off, Larissa, I was 1.5 years old when this happened. You were but a twinkle in your parents' eyes. Tuesday is the 50th anniversary of a major political event in Australia.
The most dramatic constitutional crisis Australia has ever faced, the dismissal of the Whitlam government on November 11 in 1975. For those who did live through it, one of those days you remember where you are, what you were doing when all the news started to break.
It's sort of not like it is now where you got an alert on your phone.
I know, and you go, what? Hang on. Start opening the apps.
Might have been when you picked up the newspaper the next day. I don't know. Or tuned into the 6 p.m. news.
6 p.m. news. Or maybe there was a special bulletin. Who knows?
I don't know.
But Governor General Sir John Kerr dismissed Labor PM Gough Whitlam and installed Liberal Malcolm Fraser.
Yeah, so here's what happened. Fraser was the opposition leader. He had been blocking supply in the Senate, so the government's budget and the flow of money, and essentially just starved the Whitlam government of the ability to do anything. Whitlam was trying to work around it. He was planning on going to Government House to call an election that morning, but Kerr moved first.
Yeah, and what made it so controversial is that there was deception involved. Whitlam went to see Kerr that morning, expecting to discuss an election. Instead, Kerr had already decided to dismiss him, and he had Fraser waiting in the next room.
In the next room. And there's that iconic scene of David Smith, who was the Governor-General's secretary, then heading to Parliament House to read the proclamation that was on the steps of old Parliament House, of course, with Whitlam standing right there. That led to Whitlam's very famous response, well, maybe say, God save the Queen, but nothing will save the Governor-General.
Oh, so good. The reaction was immediate and intense, as you would expect it to be. In the election that followed, Fraser won by a landslide, but the legitimacy of how he got there really haunted him in his time as PM.
Yeah, it's 50 years on. It's still very divisive. As for what's on this week with that notable anniversary, there's a whole program of events. The Museum of Australian Democracy, which is at Old Parliament House, it's running commemoration events. There's a Sky News documentary. There's new books that are being released. Paul Kelly and Troy Branston are two who have a Whitlam biography where Paul Keating claims that he would have had Kerr arrested if he'd been the Prime Minister.
Oh, and I'm sure he would have had something just as cutting to say too. But it's such a pivotal event. It really shaped a generation's view of politics and power in Australia. Now, whether you think Kerr saved democracy or betrayed it might depend on your political leanings, but there's really no denying that November 11, 1975 really changed Australia forever. Let's move on to what else is happening this week.
Let's start with today. The Women's Big Bash cricket is back. It kicks off with Brisbane Heat, the Melbourne Renegades on their home turf.
Brisbane captain Jess Janasson is set to be the first player to take 200 wickets in the women's BBL comp. She won player of the tournament for last year's season, but she still didn't manage to snag a spot in the national team for the Women's ODI World Cup. She says she's ready for it.
Yep. Good on Jess. Go for it. If you're a rugby league fan, the finals of the Pacific Cup are playing in Sydney. So the Aussie Gillaroos, they've made it to the really last leg of that women's comp. So good luck to them. They're against the Kiwi Ferns. That's at 1:30 p.m. Toa Samoa, they take on the Kiwis. That's in the men's final. That's at 4:05 p.m. Monday, Brazil will be in the headlines for more than just Cop30. The Sao Paulo Grand Prix race is on at 4 a.m. our time. I'm really invested in this.
All right, give it to me. Why?
I've gone right down an F1 rabbit hole again. So it's all about McLaren and Oscar Piastri, of course, the boy from Melbourne, and Lando Norris, who's Brit. They're teammates. The Aussie has been in the championship lead for a good part of the season. He's not been on his A game of late. Norris is now up by 1 point, which is a tiny, tiny little point. Piastri has a good chance of winning this Grand Prix in Brazil. The track suits him. It's really exciting. There's only like 4 races left to go.
I knew you were a Drive to Survive fan.
Love it.
I did not know you'd converted into this full F1 nerd.
Go the Aussies. Yeah.
But look, I can get behind an Aussie. Something probably less thrilling for participants, but probably just as stressful. Year 12 students in Tasmania start their final exams on Monday. How much do you reckon every teacher frantically double-checked their syllabus against their teaching points after that snafu with the Caesars?
I know. Oh, dear.
Breaks your heart.
I'm sure they're going to be very well prepped down in Tassie to do that.
Yep.
Tuesday, the winner of the Booker Prize will be announced. Guest judge is Sarah Jessica Parker. She described getting down to that shortlist as real agony. They're going to be announced at 8:30 a.m. our time.
Yeah, I had a quick look at the shortlist. Wasn't familiar with any of them, so I'm going to do a bit more snooping, see if I can add any to my towering to-be-read pile. On the topic of books, though, Helen Garner's new book, The Mushroom Tapes, which she co-wrote with Chloe Hooper and Sarah Krasnostein, that comes out on Tuesday as well. She attended the trial. She's now written a book on it. This is something that she's done before. It's the 3rd time she's published something based on a real case, a real trial. The other 2 were This House of Grief and Joe Chinque's Consolation.
Read both of them. They're both incredible.
Okay.
It's also Remembrance Day on Tuesday. Of course, we touched on that briefly in the weekly wrap yesterday when we talked about Prince Harry's essay written to commemorate Remembrance Day. It's marked with a minute's silence at 11 a.m. to mark the anniversary of the armistice agreement that ended the fighting in World War I back in 1918. It also serves to remember all people who have died in all wars.
Yeah.
Something that is the opposite of silent. On Wednesday, it's the Great Melbourne Bagpipe Bash.
Oh my gosh. What is that? That sounds like it involves more than one set of bagpipes.
Like your eardrums being bashed by bagpipes.
Bleeding.
I don't know. Look, there's participants, there's players, there's pipers, I don't know. Whatever, a group of them is going to be there. They're angling to break the world record for the largest ever bagpipe ensemble. They want to do it playing AC/DC's iconic hit song, It's a Long Way to the Top.
Oh, and apparently to break the record, they will need more than 333 pipers, players, whatever you call them.
Yep.
That's on around 5 p.m. at Federation Square in Melbourne. If you would like to either attend or give it a very wide berth, up to you.
You have been warned.
You have been warned. Speaking of AC/DC, though, they kick off their Aussie tour in Melbourne on Wednesday as well. Also on Wednesday, Japan's ambassador to Australia, Kazuhiro Suzuki, will be speaking at the National Press Club. Now, 2026 marks 50 years since Japan and Australia signed the Basic Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation.
It is, and always good eyes on Japan because, of course, they're increasingly important to us. We share a lot of the same challenges and opportunities when it comes to China and the United States. On Thursday, there's a hefty court hearing that's heading into the federal court.
Yeah, so that's the superannuation fund CBUS. They're being sued by ASIC. That's Australia's corporate regulator. They're being sued for allegedly failing to process over 10,000 death and disability claims fast enough. ASIC says that's caused real harm to families who are waiting on those payments on top of the grief and pain that they're already experiencing. that's probably going to get some coverage across the week.
Yeah, you'd expect so. On Friday, Adelaide will host the Beach Volleyball World Championships. Seems more California, Gold Coast, Sydney.
Gold Coast,
maybe. Yeah. Adelaide is where it's at, though.
It is, and they are on until the 24th of November. The tournament has come up in the news a little bit. Now, an Olympian called Steven van der Velde, he is a convicted child sex offender. He plays for the Netherlands. He's actually been banned from entering Australia to participate in this comp.
Yeah, as you say, that's had a bit of coverage. Another thing to point to on Friday is the final public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters. It's their inquiry into the 2025 federal election.
Sounds very serious, Claire.
It is very serious, a Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters inquiry. And look, this happens after every election.
Right, okay.
There's nothing suspicious about the 2025 election. They have these hearings. People can come and voice their opinions about what happened, how the election was actually conducted, how their polling booth went, if that's up to them. The campaign, they can talk about various bits and pieces there too.
Glorious part of our democratic tradition then.
Indeed. On to Saturday, and Australia Zoo is encouraging everyone to chuck on their car keys.
Oh, yeah?
Get their Aussie twang on. It's Steve Irwin Day. Fun fact, the
Crikey.
date doesn't actually, doesn't actually happen on his birthday. It's on the birthday of his favourite animal.
Okay.
Harriet, the Galapagos tortoise. She was apparently born in 1830.
Not around anymore.
Died in 2006, I think.
The fact that you have that fact at the top of your, at
Well, I
the
had
tip
to
of your
look up.
tongue.
I was wondering if Harriet's still going strong. But no, 2006 she died, very sadly.
I feel like there's a lot of Irwins coming up. Especially with
Irwins.
Robert Irwin on Dancing with the Stars. But anyway, we don't need to
Peak
talk
Irwin.
about Robert Irwin's shirtless Dancing with the Stars anymore.
You just did, I think.
I'm
but
sorry
anyway.
about that. To wrap us through Saturday, the Socceroos are over in America. They're in Texas. They are going to be playing Venezuela. It's the first of 2 matches they're playing this month. It's part of the men's international window in the lead up to next year's FIFA World Cup.
Yep, international window is the technical term. Can't believe it's almost World Cup time again. It's, of course, being hosted by the US, by Canada and by Mexico. That's in June and July next year. Something to look forward to.
That's us done.
That is us done. Thank you so much. Hope that gets you ready for the week. Larissa, thank you so much for riding shotgun with me this week.
Loved it. Catch you another time.